Good morning, JC.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good to be with you today.
Appreciate you being with us again. Is there anything since we talked last in the football recruiting that maybe has surprised you as far as getting players, one school getting somebody they didn't think, or what? Just kind of overview the football recruiting as the last time we talked.
Yeah, it's right now with a lot of teams in spring practice, we're getting to the kind of I don't want to say a lull, because there are a lot of visitors that come in for spring ball and kind of get a look at the different schools. Kind of, there's really a revolving door, so to speak, of unofficial visits during this time of the year. But we don't have that many in terms of, I guess, commitments and a lot of the fireworks that we see. Of course, we're still waiting on one kid for the 2016 class, Demetrius Robertson, wide receiver out of Savannah, Georgia. Still trying to decide, Georgia, Alabama, Stanford. I think he signed a grant and aid paperwork with Georgia Tech as well. So that should be coming to a close soon. I think that, at this point, there's nothing that says he has to even sign a letter of intent. But you think that with him being a relatively intelligent young man and sort of having all the information out in front of him, that, the decision would be coming soon. You look at the early team rankings, and a lot of these teams have kind of between 7 and 14 commitments. Ohio State, number one class in the country, that doesn't surprise me. I think that, obviously they've recruited at a high level since Urban Meyer's been there. And the national championship 2 years ago has laid the groundwork for them to really get off to a fast start. A surprising team, though, that people would want to take a look at is Miami. Mark Richt at Miami has the number 2 class right now.
Really?
They have 14 commitments so far, 5 of them 4-star prospects, and that's a pretty good start. Now, some of those guys did commit to Al Golden really, really early, and Coach Rich and his staff have, kept them sort of together. But Miami being number 2 this early, I think is a positive sign about what they could do with this first full cycle under Rick.
Well, that's interesting there. Mark Richt, number 2. Hopefully you can hold on to that. JC, I've been adamant this Kirby Smart deal that everybody's talking about. I mean, the media, I don't know if you're hearing it up there, they have gone crazy over this thing. It's a bunch to do about nothing. Please help me out here with this Kirby Smart deal. Why is everybody going so crazy over this? Because he blocked a kid going to Florida or Miami, which Miami wasn't even recruiting him anyway. This is normal practice everywhere, isn't it? I mean, you're not just going to let a guy walk in and go into your vision. Kirby Smart's not doing anything different than anybody else, is he?
Well, the national media, I call them the watchers of college football, because I think that a lot of times some of these guys, they think that their mission in life is to provide oversight to the sport. And in some ways, I guess, that if you look at the traditional role of media in this country, it is sort of a watchdog. That being said, every time a coach within the rules limits a transfer, they're depicted at best as Kim Jong-un and at worst as Simon Legree. It's ridiculous. They, it shows sort of the disconnect, I think, between the media and big-time college football. And some of these guys, look for every single opportunity they can to vilify coaches, schools, the system. And I'm just not. I do think there are times when you have to say, "Hey, that's not right." But the rules are the rules. Don't blame college coaches. That players have to sit out a year when they transfer. That's the NCAA. You want that change, go knock on their door. Don't take this, secondary function of the rule, which is, protecting your program and not letting players leave and go hurt you someplace else, and then vilify Kirby Smart over it. I mean, it's not something that's, not out of the ordinary. Now, if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm probably going to be a little smarter about it. No pun intended. I think that having it get public that Miami was one of the teams they blocked, that doesn't really, from a competitive standpoint, hurt Georgia. And the kid wasn't going to go there anyway. So I think that more maybe kind of is a learning experience for him, because being a first-time head coach, you don't want to, that kind of move looks petty and weak perception-wise. And you don't
that's
want
a good way. That's a good way to put that. Miami wasn't in anyway. Then don't even bring it up.
You don't want that out there. But blocking Florida, Georgia has to play Florida every year down in the Gator Bowl, or what used to be the Gator Bowl down in Jacksonville. So they, that makes perfect sense. Of course, he's not going to let the kid transfer to Florida, and that's, you don't really you didn't hear a lot of outrage either. When Jim McElwain in Florida blocked a bunch of schools for Will Greer, their quarterback, to go to. That's just.
Is it the time of year, or I guess it's time there's not a lot going on, but football still dominates? I mean, I want to ask these people: have you ever taken a job where you signed a non-compete clause? What's the difference in that and what Kirby Smart? It's a non-compete clause, so you can't just jump to the other company that's doing the same thing. I mean, have people never heard of this?
No, I guess not. I mean, you just it's one of those things where I think there's a lack of understanding. I think, the time of the year does make it. And I also think, quite frankly, that, because of Kirby Smart's affiliation with Alabama, and because a lot of people in the media didn't really think that Georgia should have fired Mark Richt and gone and hired Kirby Smart. Mark Richt is very well respected and liked. And because of the media market that it's in at the University of Georgia, where they have, the big Atlanta media and others, the profile and who it is, where it came from, I think, is feeding the narrative as well. Because, Nick Saban, he blocks a kid from transferring somewhere. He's going to be vilified because people naturally like to vilify Nick Saban for whatever reason. And, it's a situation where I think some of that's coming into play with it as well. But I absolutely think it shows, just this whole general outrage that some of the national media shows whenever a coach does something that's strategically beneficial to his program, and it's not, it's a situation where maybe a player disagrees. 99.99% of the time, they're going to side with the player. And then, they're going to turn around too, though, and, in cases where players have run amok or gotten into trouble or whatever, they're also going to turn around and blame the coach. It's a really anti-coach sort of sentiment out there. I don't know whether it's because coaches make a lot of money these days or what, but it's a situation where coaches really don't have a lot of allies when it comes to managing their programs from a strategic personnel standpoint in college football these days.
Well, yeah, you're right on the Florida thing. If they didn't say anything to Jim, they went, he's a quarterback. Everybody likes the quarterback, and he didn't give the guy an open door to go anywhere he wanted to, and nobody said much about it because they were all busy at that time. Now they're not so busy. They got basketball. They don't like it to start with, so they got to write something. That's the whole thing. Plus, they're really going to be fussy because the East in football is going to be sorry, except for Georgia is going to be pretty good. So the East is going to be the worst it's ever been.
Well, you have a lot of transition in that division, and Florida doesn't really have the guys coming back. They had a lot of guys that aren't on the team anymore that helped them this past year. And so I think they should take a step back. But you're right. The East as a whole is probably going to be as bad as it's ever been.
JC, Jim Harbaugh, I mean, all the stuff that he's doing now, I mean, does it get to the point where you just look at it and just kind of roll your eyes and laugh? Or does this guy have a method to his madness?
Well, I think he does. I think he's, somebody, a high school coach in Mississippi yesterday, said he's the Trump of college football.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty good analogy there.
You know, he's not afraid to say what he thinks. You know, I think that, you know, Twitter is such a good thing and a bad thing these days. And I think in this case, Twitter gives Jim Harbaugh a direct audience, direct voice. Because he is a little bit, you know, when he goes on the record with the media, he's not, it's a different voice than you hear when he's speaking on Twitter or doing something different. So there's no filter for him. You know, you get Jim Harbaugh unfiltered. Now, I think it's refreshing, quite frankly. I don't think he's done anything but ruffle feathers. I don't think he's done anything that, you know, you would look at and go, oh, maybe he shouldn't have done that. You know, I think that it's good when you follow the storylines of college football. If you're in one part of the country, to kind of have villains in another part of the country. And I think that if you're in another part of the country, it's good to have villains in that part of the country. And, yeah, you know, I think that for the SEC people looking at the Big Ten, yeah, I mean, Urban Meyer's sort of a villain, but, you know, he's more of a villain because of what he did at Florida and what he did in the league. And, you know, Ohio State's Ohio State, and Urban's a great coach, blah, 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 blah. And Urban doesn't really go out of his way to be, you know, overly critical of other teams or take shots on Twitter or anything like that. And I enter Jim Harbaugh, you know, he's taking shots at athletic directors and Kirby Smart. Poor Kirby Smart can't win, can he? And,
he's getting beat up. He probably said it's a lot easier being an assistant when I couldn't talk to the media.
And taking his team down south for spring practice to Florida, you know, having camps all over the place and all that. So yeah, it probably, you know, it's probably a good thing. I think we need, you know, in the South, villains outside of our own conference.
You think he calls his staff in and says, "All right, guys, this is a tweet I'm about to send out about the Ohio State AD," and then he hits in, they just sit back and just die laughing at all the retweets and the comments. You think it's a calculated deal, or he brings the staff in?
You know what? From what I hear, no. He just does it. He just does it. He's, from what I hear, people that have worked with him, worked around him, and been on his teams, he's a guy that just, when he's coaching football, he just coaches football, but then there's just random things that pop in his mind, and he goes with it. You know, it's interesting because if you think about it, you compare him to Steve Spurrier a little bit, and you know, both guys had relatively lengthy NFL careers. You know, Harbaugh was a starter more than Spurrier was, but, you know, they sort of had similar type, you know, long NFL experiences, and they got into coaching. And look, their personalities are really, really different, obviously, because of, you know, where they're from and all that. But if you kind of look at their tactics and sort of what they do and how they try to get inside the minds of opponents, it's very similar. And I think, you know, we lost Coach Spurrier from, you know, actively coaching last year, and, you know, there kind of was a vacuum, and you need a guy to kind of step in and shake it up. What's he going to say next? But, you know, I think it's great, but that's Harbaugh.
Well, his attitude is the less, you know, the more you can talk about the silly things that he does, the less you talk about Ohio State. And that's his main gig. You're not talking about Ohio State as much. You're not talking about them being number one as much. You're not thinking they're going to be this, that, and the other. You're sort of talking about all the stupid things he does. Have you ever thought about, and I know cost is not big, have you ever thought about the cost that it took them to fly that football team down to Florida and stay as long as they did? Huh? There's some athletic directors that would have shut the door and said, "Don't knock on my door again."
Yeah.
You don't think they stayed at the Days Inn down there?
Oh my heavens, Mark! Can you imagine them going to Mississippi State, or somewhere like that? I don't mean Mississippi State, but anywhere, someplace where you don't think they just bukus of money, And the first thing the AD says, now Jim, how much is that going to cost? Well, I don't know, sir. It's probably going to be a pretty good load.
I think Michigan's probably got it. But,
yeah, they got it, sure.
They're probably not hurting, but yeah, that's a big added expense. I mean, you look at your budgets and stuff, and you know what do you spend money on during spring practice? Well, maybe you get new practice uniforms. You know, you got to get the Gatorade expense, or you got tape the tape. You know, that's peanuts. You know, but then you're like, well, we're just going to take the entire operation to Florida.
Spring practice.
And the
spring practice, $2 million. $2 million?
And the problem that you got, fellas, is when they go back to Michigan, they're going to say, why the crap didn't I sign with Florida?
It could have an opposite effect.
That's true. I think Alabama ought to have it in Atlantis next year. Just have spring practice over at Atlantis. That'd be a nice trip.
That's coming next. You'll see it. I mean, that kind of thing's coming next. When the SEC said you guys can do what you want, but then if you keep, with the camps, they say you keep doing it, we're just going to do it better. If they keep on with exotic spring practice locales, it's going to end up being, you're going to see Alabama in the Bahamas or something.
Oh, no doubt.
That.
We're not going to take we're going to run in the sand. We're going to go to Atlantis.
I think it'd be great. I mean, I would love to go and sign up to cover Alabama spring practice in its entirety in the Bahamas.
Oh, no doubt.
You could sign me up for that duty right now.
We'll take the radio show on that. We'll do it live. The first practice we've been to. Well, JC, as always, that's good stuff, man. Actually, Tennessee, Butch Jones said he was going to do it, but he was just going to travel around the towns in Tennessee and take his team. Would you rather do that or go to the Bahamas?
Oh, I'd rather go to Oak Ridge in Hornwall, Tennessee.
Jackson, Tennessee, spring practice for the ball.
We're going to go to Chattanooga next Thursday. Wow.
Yeah, they can look at the Statue of the Confederacy.
Well, the Chattanooga Choo-Choo and Lookout Mountains there.
Yeah.
See 7 states. You can see 7 states.
Yeah, great. We're going to go to Murfreesboro and have practice. Oh, yeah. JC, I wouldn't say Nashville or Franklin. That's pretty nice, but those other places, I don't know. All right, JC, appreciate it. I hope to have you on next week. We'll get your Final Four picks next week.
All right, that sounds good, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, man.